Good evening, everybody. Enjoy the next hour's show. Grab a drink, put your feet up, chill out, relax, as the panel talk about the most recent topics in your area and nationally. Handing you back over to Nick. Speak soon. Bye.
We did it. That took a long time. Good evening. Welcome back. It's me, your host again for this evening, Nicholas James, and joining me on the panel this week, she's graced us with our presence once again. That's Kerry Gillespie.
Hi.
The person that always jumps in, that's Sanjay Hitwell.
Hiya.
Black is Sue Craven. As we talk about this week, we have our say about that Johnny Depp trial. Find out what our views are. And do we believe that relationships should stay out of friendships' opinions when we enter them? Also, joining and linking onto the Johnny Depp court case, we talk about human emotion, but tonight, especially anger. Do we grow as we get older, and do we deal with emotions better as we get wiser? And we finish on the subject of a woman that is fighting back to say, should she have just broken the COVID rules to go and see her dying husband take his last breath? As it's come out this week that the parties at number 10 happened even more, with people being sick and people even speaking out from number 10 to say what was happening. That's all on this week's Loose Links. Good evening.
Hang on a minute, Nick. Where have you been for the last 2 weeks?
I know, do you know, I have missed you all incredibly. I have been watching from the side scenes. It's absolutely amazing to be back. I've been watching, and can I just say a massive well done to Mike Curtis. He was absolutely amazing as a host. I've said many times on this show, and I'm not afraid to share it, that back in 2012, I was in a relationship that was quite abusive. What I've recently found out within the last year is that when he used to attack the face occasionally, it didn't happen a lot, but when he did, he broke the bone in my gum up here, so nothing was holding my teeth in. So for the last 2 weeks, I was toothless. I had a tooth missing from the front of my face, and I just didn't want to come on camera. But ladies, what do you think of my new smile?
Looking good.
I finally got new teeth. It's taken quite a chunk out of my wages, but also it's good to be smiling again. And actually, it put to bed quite a few traumas that I was carrying for a couple of years. So it's good to be back. I've missed it. I sort of grieved it for 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? I've watched it from the sidelines. I've been a viewer, but to hand over the reins. But Mike Curtis, I salute you. You did an absolutely amazing job. And also, if you didn't watch last week's episode, please look back. We had the pleasure of the actress Natalie Davis on the show, that's been in Coronation Street and The Vicar of Dibley and Casualty and all of that, and we interviewed her about her latest project, which is on stage, called Full English. Now, it's a recommended, absolutely amazing theatre performance. If you haven't already got tickets, we will be putting the link on this week. Please go and see it. But if you didn't see it last week's show, there's a preview clip to go and watch it. But good evening, ladies. It's good to be back. How are we all? Are we all right?
Yeah, good.
Good. Kerry, 2 weeks running. 2 weeks bloody running.
You conned me into this, saying Mike was going to present. That's the only reason why. That's the only reason why I've done it. Didn't know you were back. You tricked me.
As we always always do, let's start with last week's polls, because it was your show. It's your show as well as ours. And we'll do the few shout outs that has been shared onto our page this week as well. So the 2 polls that were shared this week was the sexual orientation of a person does not demean the person's skills or ability to do a job, a sport, or be a decent human being. Do you think it is wrong to put pressure on individuals to publicly come out? And 100% of you said yes. There was nobody that said no. So thank you for joining in with that poll. And the second poll is, do you agree with the saying, friends are the family we choose? 93% of you said yes. 7% of you said no. Please make sure you're joining in all our polls because your say is just as important as ours. And the few shout outs that we've got for this week, please have a look at a person that is shared on our page named Richie. He's an high functioning autistic, but he's reaching out to any community projects where he can meet people. He's looking to meet and greet people. So if you know any projects out there where there's a community or meeting new people or new friends, please reach out to him. We've also had Eden Links Ending Domestic Abuse has shared their thank you to everyone who's helped us around Easter to purchase lots of the worry monsters. You can buy more worry monsters for children or young people who have witnessed or experienced domestic abuse. Have a look on that. That's really, really good. There's an opportunity to enjoy the countryside and meet new friends. Wisby Nature Park's Women's Slow Walking Group. Go and have a look on there. There's also Zoe Anderson has shared, can you help? We are 3 mums who have survived domestic abuse and we have quite frankly had enough. It's a big post about that. Have a look at that. Also, we've shared the MOM group this week for Community Grocery Lincoln. Go and have a look at that. And I think, Julie Lee has also shared Community Grocery Lincoln. Go and have a look at their page, see what you think of that. And I think that's it this week. But Julie Lee has also shared Lincolnshire needs more foster carers. Contact information is on our page. Please share your adverts on our Facebook page and we will shout out to as many groups as we possibly can. But I'm back in my hot seat and here we go. I'm ready to talk about the first subject. So the first subject, Kerry, are you ready for this? Because I know you're talking to me a lot about this. Are you ready for it?
I'm excited.
We talk about the testimony in depth versus heard in the court case. Testimony for both sides of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial came to an end on Thursday. Juniors were sent home for the day. Juries were sent home for the day and we returned with the closing argument at 9 a.m. ET on Friday. Do we let's just start to talk about this. How did you all feel watching the Johnny Depp and the Amanda trial come forward? Amber trial come forward. How did you all feel about it?
Loved it. Engrossed. Yeah, I was engrossed in it. Actually.
Why were you engrossed?
Because a number of reasons, really. I think it was the fact that it was a high-profile case. No matter what you do in your life, you're the same as the next person, aren't you? You know, and things affect people exactly the same, no matter what your wealth or what your status. But it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. I've got loads to say on it, but I'll take up the whole show if I talk about it, and I don't want to do that. But it was interesting. I think there's a lot of people on Johnny Depp's side with it, and from what I watched, which was literally 99% of it, I would say he's won.
Was you hooked on it, Sue? Was it something that you were interested in, or was you just not really bothered about it?
No, I did. I watched the news and things. I didn't watch a lot of it, but I really felt that I felt she came out in a bad light and should have done, because I think she's portrayed herself as this victim and everything. But the more you heard, the more they realised she wasn't. And I think, I think a lot of it, she was the instigator. I think I'll be interested to hear the verdict. I hope it does come out with him, because it's ruined his career so far already. He's lost film parts and things. And I think it's like I said, I think it's 6 of one and half dozen the other. He probably did do some things, but to me, was he just retaliating? Some of the things that she said and that Kerry's spoken about, probably will again now. He, things he's supposed to have done, but she didn't seek medical help, didn't ask for attention, so she can't have been too injured.
I don't know if I agree with that, Sue. only because I didn't. No,
but I think the thing that you've got with it is there was that many other people that witnessed certain situations who were saying, well, it actually wasn't like that. That's the reason why she didn't seek help. She did seek some medical help on a couple of occasions, but the majority of the time there were witnesses there. There was a lot of staff around them at all these different homes. She didn't have like a backup for a lot of the stuff, and it was really sad. It was sad to watch for me, because I thought, it's not just a case of this is alleged domestic abuse. It was also delving into, the childhood of Johnny Depp, childhood of Amber as well, and bringing all that up. And it was like, I felt she had no remorse in anything, how far back things were dug up. There was no remorse from her there. I felt it very heartless at times.
I found that when she was actually sat there and she was just kind of like staring off, and she looked very stoic and very serious, and like she wasn't kind of watching what was going on. It's like she wasn't taking it in. She was just sat there like, okay, yeah. Then she's been caught smirking at other people when things have been said, and I'm thinking, if she
that was on both sides, Sam. I will have to speak up for Johnny Depp.
I think one of the things though that Amber done, she mimicked Johnny Depp to her solicitor while he was on the stand. So Johnny Depp's barrister, whatever you call him, you'd see that he looked at Amber a couple of times, but she's like this, mimicking all this, that, and you're thinking, how disrespectful while he's on the stand.
But why, what I can't get in my head is, I just think when we've talked about publicity in the past, when we've talked about, well, Meghan and Harry could have just gone off. Let's take Meghan and Harry, for example. They could have just gone off. They don't want to be celebrities. Is this just a bit too much in media to watch a divorce happen and to watch it go to court and to talk about domestic abuse?
It's not.
Because the only thing is, Kerry, is they both, and I'm not saying it's Johnny Depp and I'm not sticking up for him, but they both took it to a court where cameras could go in.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they do it privately?
Because this is the whole thing. The case is about defamation. It's about Amber Heard posting something in the paper which has had such an effect on Johnny Depp's career. It's not just about a divorce or domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is part of it. But basically, he's took her to court. He took her to court in Virginia, where it is televised. But in Virginia is where the officers are for the newspaper, I believe, where she put this article. And not just that, one really interesting part of it that I've seen is that he was claiming he wants 50 million off her. She's not worth 50 million. He's never going to get 50 million from her. He's doing this to clear his name from this awful person.
The reason why it's televised is because he wants the world to know, that it wants the world to know exactly what happened. I think that's probably the reason why
And it
it's
happens to
televised.
men, and it happens to men, isn't it? That's it.
But to me, where is privacy in life? It's almost like when you go into the celebrity world, it's like we've talked about this. We've talked about in the past on past shows being that bigger picture, so being that bigger person. Sorry. So, for example, the Will Smith slap. We highly discussed here about the Will Smith slap and was that right what he did? Was it right that he went on stage and he slapped that actor across the face? Or would it have been more dignified if he had stood up, taken his wife's hand and walked out? It was almost like, to me, that both of them wanted it, as I was watching it, both of them wanted the media to be a huge part of it, to make them bigger than what they are, to this, that and the other. To me, it didn't come across about the relationship and what had happened in the relationship and why that relationship had broken down. It was about who could make the bigger story. Who could
It's not how many people, like you just said, you didn't go to the police or you didn't do this. How many people are in that situation where there isn't support or they don't feel that they can speak up? Whether or not Johnny Depp is a celebrity or not, this is televised and it's very supportive for people going through these kinds of issues to say, actually, don't be afraid to speak up.
But it also shows people how difficult it is. It also shows people how difficult the court case is, and how difficult conversations come out, how real emotion is shown. And actually, let's put that on television for everybody's entertainment. My trauma that I'm going through right now, that I'm really upset about and I'm really down and it's really affected me, is entertainment in other people's lives. How would we feel about that if that was us personally and our life had publicised to everybody and everybody had an opinion about it? How would you feel?
They chose to. And it's our choice whether we watch it or not. It's not.
We're not forced to watch it.
No.
But in the same respect, people are going to watch it, aren't they? It's Johnny Depp. Say like it was.
It is interesting. It's affecting someone.
Yeah, but it's interesting because he's a celebrity. Now, if you had said to me,
I didn't see it like that.
But if you had said to me, this was a publicised court case to make, like you've just said, to make domestic abuse more aware and what people have to go through and all of that, but it was Harry and bloody Sally from down the street, there is no way in God's name the amount of people that have watched Johnny bloody Depp because of his name that would have watched that court case. Yes, he is.
Are you saying every person that suffers domestic abuse has to go to court, has to go and sit in a courtroom? It's not about that, Nicholas. It's about people coming forward and being able to speak about what they're going through. It's not saying go and sit in a courtroom with the perpetrator next to you. It's putting something out there for people to say, listen, this happens to men, it happens to women, it happens if you're a multi-millionaire, it happens if you're not a multi-millionaire, if you live on a street, if you live in a mansion. It's given a lot more than just that. Not every case would go to court. It's given people...
It's freedom of choice. They chose, and they chose to go to court, and that's their right to.
Yeah. Let's talk about domestic abuse a little bit. Do you feel like when there is, be honest with me here, ladies, when we do hear about court case about domestic abuse and it's a man and a woman that's gone to court and it's hit papers because it's a big case, do you think we automatically think that the man, because of being a man, is more likely to be the persecutor than the woman?
Yeah, and that's what it's been like for years and years, because like I was saying, that the man is has always been seen as the masculine guy that doesn't show emotion, that it doesn't happen to, you know.
And it's also the, you know, they say that, you know, that the men are generally stronger than women as well. So, you know, it's generally men can overpower a woman if he chooses, but people don't realize that a woman can overpower a man as well. So it goes both ways.
Well, it's interesting because we had about a year ago now, we had, I don't know if you remember, ladies, we had Robert Wells. Good evening, Robert, if you're watching this evening. Came onto our show to talk about his personal journey on domestic abuse, because he was abused by a woman, and he shared a very, very interesting TikTok video this week that I'm going to share with you all, and I just want to see your reaction to what he said. So see what you guys think to what Robert said.
Regardless of the outcome of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial this coming week, there can be absolutely no doubt that Amber Heard is a female perpetrator of domestic abuse and domestic violence against her former husband. It's time to change the conversation around domestic abuse to be inclusive of all victims and their children.
So what do we think of that, ladies?
I agree. I do agree with that. Yeah, I very much agree with that.
And isn't that good, the fact that Robert has done this clip because the case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard has been televised. There is another man who supportive, all for domestic abuse. He wouldn't have done that if this wasn't televised. There's another support step there. So, you know.
But it also encourages men to speak up as well. They see that Johnny Depp is speaking out about what happened. And that's going to, I feel like that's going to encourage men to speak out as well, because it's not just women that gets abused. Obviously men do as well, but there's not enough support out there for men. So I do feel like that this might change things a little bit. Maybe, you know, I feel like that there's going to be more men.
Well, it needs to, Sam. Can you remember, Sue, you were on the episode with me. I completely agree with you. Can you remember when we were talking about the girls' night in? Can you remember that show where we were talking about that?
Yes.
And we were saying there, and this still shocks me today, that for Women's Refuge, the line is open 24/7. So any woman can pick up the phone and be heard 24/7. For men, it's between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And that's what I find shocking. So how is that? This is why it's so important that we talk about stuff like this on this show, on this platform. It's because how is that supporting men? It's almost pushing men and saying, well, it's almost like that stigma that women are more important. Do you get what I'm saying? Women are more important and more vulnerable than men are.
Like I said, you know, the women aren't as strong as men. So people automatically think if there's domestic violence in a relationship, it's going to be the man. No one ever thinks it's going to be the woman that's doing the perpetrating.
Carrie, how do you react to what I've just said about, you know, the 24/7 Women's Refuge open, but the 9 to 5 for a man? You can only ring.
We should just be treated as equal in all respects.
But the thing is,
we're not.
Nick, men can ring the Women's Refuge. And although they can't take them in, they will get them some refuge. They can ring now 24/7, and they will point them in the right direction. They will help them now.
I just think that we need to. We're in a generation now, I feel, that we're more open about gender. We're more open about sexuality. We're more open about abuse and everybody being abused. Let's stop putting sexes before a name. So instead of Women's Refuge, let's just have refuge. So it's inclusive to everybody. anybody that is suffering in any sort of way, stop putting a sex in front of it. Stop making it out to be one sex is more. Yes, I don't know statistics, but I just as a domestic abuse survivor, it is so frustrating when you hear all the time about women being saved and this, that, and the other, and it shows. I haven't gave my opinion. I've always said on this side of the coin. I always look on the other side of the story, but it shows that it was more likely that the woman in this case was more violent than the man. And when are we going to start opening our eyes to that? When are we going to start bringing that into education? Because to me, it's almost saying that women are more vulnerable than men are. And how do you feel as a woman being told that by society?
The statistics show, I mean, I haven't got them now, but when we did that show, I did my research, and even to this day, I can't, as I say, I can't quote it, but the incidence of women and domestic abuse is still far higher than men.
But how do you feel that as a woman, though, Sue? How do you feel that society, as a woman, is telling you that you are more vulnerable and more?
It's not telling me that. It's not telling me that, Nick. What it's telling me is
that's what your statistics are now telling me.
No, it's not. These statistics come from the people who have sought help or from police referrals from that. They're not.
But what about those percentage then? What about those percentage of men that have gone through abuse? What about those small percentages? Because we're talking about statistics that are the high statistics. But what about those small group of men that don't have a voice at the moment, are not being heard because actually they're being told that it's higher, that a woman is getting abused than a man? What about those small?
It's not. If a man or a woman rang the police regarding abuse, it will be treated exactly the same if they rang the police. The support for men and women, because it is separated, it isn't like you're saying, just like there should just be one, it shouldn't be women's refuge, it should just be refuge. This case is highlighting the fact that it does happen to men. Some people won't believe that, no matter what statistics you throw down their throat, they will not believe it. And it's going to take things like this to make people see. Simple as that.
And I feel that's why it's being televised. It's to show that men go through it as well as women. It's not just women that gets abused. So, and that's what this court case is showing. Johnny Depp is putting out he's being vulnerable and putting everything out to let everybody know this happened to me.
Do you think it's got nothing to do with money then at all? Do you think
I've just said that. He says he wants 50 million out of Amber Heard. She's not even worth 50 million. He's never going to get that money.
She's worth about 7. I think she's worth about 7 million or something like that.
That was 7 million that she pledged to give to the children's hospital, and that which she never gave. But he's never going to get the money out of it. It's all about highlighting this as abuse against a man, and the fact that it's defamation against him, and it's ruined his career.
I think defamation of character, that's what it's about. And as you say, clearing his name, really.
Yeah.
He has admitted to certain things, but from the way it's come out, I mean, it's been provocation a lot of the time.
The thing is, I watched the video on Facebook about the whole court case and that, and it says that that there was that the reason it's all televised because there was talking about why is it televised, why isn't it private like we are, and one person come up and says it's all about the money, but it's like, well, no, it's not about the money, because she's trying to counter sue him for 100 million. Now, if she wins that counter sue, that will bankrupt Johnny Depp. So either way, one of them.
But a barrister at the end of it last week came up to the jury and said, "We don't want 100 million. We've never wanted 100 million." This is what they were saying. we'd like £350,000 towards the damages. They don't even want 100 million, and you think, listening to some other solicitors comment on it, it's just a game. It's a game with her. I'm not saying at all Johnny Depp wasn't abusive. He was probably verbally abusive, and I think in his rage and in his anger, he's chucked stuff and he's slammed stuff and he's done that. Not for a minute do I think with what I watched that he physically hurt her. I mean, he called her some great names, sorry, in his messages.
Yeah.
Do you think once labelled, always labelled? Do you think you can never really escape being labelled when you've been labelled as a persecutor of domestic violence?
I think it'd be difficult in the celebrity world, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be difficult, obviously, for them to get, jobs, to get any more projects. So, whichever one loses this case, they're going to kind of drift off into obscurity, and we'll probably never hear from them.
Mm.
I mean, myself, I've never liked Amber Heard. I've never really liked her. I watched her in Aquaman, and I'm just like, what is she doing? She just, I just couldn't. I really never liked her. So, and Kerry, I still don't.
Kerry, do you know it works every single time? Every time you're on the show, I'm like, I'm just going to prod her that little bit more. Let's see if I can just get a little bit more out of her.
You've prodded me. You've prodded me.
And it works every single time.
I'm going for the mega pint now.
Thanks, Sam.
It's never gonna go away.
Right, ladies, hold up a minute. You are the fifth panel member out there. Make sure you have your say. What did you think about the telegraphed court case? Did you think it was right that it was publicised to everybody? Do you think that we are stuck in society of thinking that women are always the victims when it comes to domestic abuse? Have your say. Make sure there are many ways you can contact us. There's our Facebook page, group, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, looselinks@gmail.com, and also www.looselinks.co.uk. Make sure you have your say. Right, ladies, going on from that story a little bit, we talk about human emotion tonight. And that human emotion is something Kerry's displayed in the first 5 minutes. And that's anger. So we talk about anger tonight because we found a very interesting video on Russell Brand this week, and we wanted to share it with you to have our view on what he thinks of the human emotion of anger. So let's have a look at what he said.
We all suffer from anger. It is part of the palette of emotions that human beings like us are subject to. Perhaps we feel anger about different things, but the anger itself is likely comparable. There are surely many variables, but we'll never know them or understand them. For time immemorial, people have used meditation in order to mediate, control, release, punishing emotions that can have a benefit in your life. It's good to feel angry if you're in a situation where you need to confront a formidable foe, but often in our world of comfort, our emotions do more harm to us than good, and possibly toxic in the lives of others.
So, ladies, what do we think? Do we, Sue Craven, was you on your mobile phone then?
I was turning it off.
So, ladies, do we agree with what Russell Brand says? Do we think anger is healthy?
I think all emotions are angry because, it's like the yin and the yang. You've got to have that balance, I feel. But it just depends on where the anger is aimed at and who it is. It's got to be done, I feel like, it's got to be done where it's not going to damage other people. There's got to be healthy ways of getting that anger out. I mean, I know a few people who used martial arts, type of martial arts to get their anger out, doing kickboxing and all that kind of thing, and it gets their anger out. But, everybody has their own way. Like Russell Brand was saying about meditation. I use meditation to help me keep myself calm. And I also got rid of a lot of negative people out of my life. I, distanced myself from a lot of negative people who kind of, you would wind me up to the point I'm like, ready to throttle someone. So, I think everybody's different about how they handle their anger and how they channel it. So, each to their own is what I think to that. So it's just depends on the individual, I think.
Kerry, do you feel like you handle your emotions a lot better now as an older woman than you did as a younger woman?
Is it watershed? Can I swear?
Please share the story that you shared in the green room about anger with us this evening, Kerry.
Well, when I was younger, I was extremely hot-headed, without a doubt. 100%. Would never ask anyone to cross me because I'd literally jump down the throat. Never physical, but I got a good scouse mouth on me, mate. So don't argue with me because literally once that breath comes out my mouth, I don't stop until I've got my point across. But yeah, there was one time I can't even remember why, but I was really annoyed this particular day. Probably about 10 years ago now. I was super annoyed this particular day. So I got out my hoover and I was doing some housework and I was hoovering up and I had a stand-up, quite a heavy stand-up hoover, which literally, it just packed in at that point. And because of the mood that I was in, it wasn't a case of going outside, take a deep breath, go back in, fix it. I unplugged my hoover, took it outside with me, picked it up above my head, chucked it down the side of the house. It smashed into a million pieces. At that point, my anger just went. I just went like that, completely just on a lull, because then I was thinking, got to go buy a new hoover now, haven't I?
Oh my God.
Why did you do that? And that was my temper at that particular time. I thought the hoover got it. I feel so sorry for the poor hoover. There was nothing wrong with it. It's nothing to use. I trashed it.
So what about you? Do you feel like you've changed over the years?
I think I've become more, definitely more mellow. And I just think, don't sweat the small stuff, just let things go. Just take a breath and just let some things go, because in this life, we've all had so many ups and downs. And I used to fly off the handle, and I think, as I've got older, I've realised, no. I mean, I think I walk. I'll go out and I'll have a good walk, or I'll go on the treadmill and I've not run, but I walk briskly and, listen to something, like you said, a podcast on something, and just listen to try and calm down. I'm not saying I don't ever get angry, because I do, but not as much. And I think it's because I've realised it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it mentally. It's trying to give yourself it's getting into that frame of mind of giving yourself just a moment to think about what it is and how you could control that situation. Can you do anything to make it better? If you can't, you've got to literally real focus and think. There's nothing I can do. If I get angry, I'm going to upset myself, or I'm going to upset who's around me. Years
ago, when I would get angry, my favourite thing to do was to blast Metallica at full pelt around the house. Just have Metallica just blaring out around the house. And my daughter always knew if Metallica was blaring out around the house, she knew that I was in a bad mood and wouldn't try me.
Who's Metallica? I've never heard of
Metallica. You must have heard of them.
Come on, give the song, Sue. I'll do the game.
I can't give you a song, but it's a very...
I'm going to say my favourite song of theirs, I've got two favourite songs of theirs, and it's The House That Jack Built and Shoot Me Again.
Heavy metal, Nick.
Heavy metal.
Oh, can you really see me listening to
No.
heavy metal?
No.
You've got
Yeah.
You've got no hair.
But here we are.
You've got no hair to shake about. That's what you do with heavy metal.
Excuse me,
the
let me just find
Metallica.
let me just find the interpreter again, because I don't know what Kerry's saying. Just give me a second. Give me a second, because I don't know what she's saying.
Bring Mike back. Bring Mike.
See, the thing with anger is I make Kerry angry every time I see her. There's many hoovers that have passed my head. Can I tell you that?
Hi, Jehovah's.
Do you think though do you think when it comes to anger and dealing with emotion and dealing with all kinds of emotion like grief and upset and anger and happiness and all of that we're molded as a child? We're molded as a child, and sometimes does it make you think, actually, this sits with me because this is how I witness? Because we are all molded to our parents, to our teachers, to everybody. That actually, when I think about it, because I've talked many times about, I've been to therapy, and therapy has been very good for me, and I do meditation like Sam does. I can't do that bloody sit in a room, sit still, listen to waves and a man talking. I do meditation. It's called walking meditation, where I walk down the street and you're aware of what's around you, and birds singing and traffic noises and all of that. But there was a time where I sat in therapy and they talk to you about your childhood and how you grew up and stuff like that. And it did make me think, actually, if my parents and their parents before that came to therapy, reached out, had counselling, worked out their own emotions, would I be sat here today? Would I be sat in this seat needing professional help, needing counselling? So do we have to, when we look back at our own lives and reflect on our own mental health, do we have to also look around the people that brought us up and their surrounding and how they grew up?
We
Well,
see
yeah.
something.
Sorry, Sam.
You see, for me, growing as a child, I was abused by my uncles, and he was always around. So, and he always made it out to be our fault, you know, because it was me and my brother. He always made it out to be our fault. So I kind of held a lot in. I didn't really express myself a lot. I was very, believe it or not, I was very introverted. I didn't really like talking to people. I wouldn't go, you know, I wouldn't say boo to a goose, basically. And I do think that a lot of that, I think, you know, if that hadn't have happened, you know, like you said, Nick, you know, would I be here now? Would I be sat here talking to you guys now? So I always think, you know, what happened in the past, what happened as a child, what happened when I was, you know, a victim of domestic abuse and all of that, that shaped me into who I am now. And if none of that had happened, my life journey would be totally different, you know. And I think to myself, would I have Alicia, you know, would I have my daughter, you know, would I be sat here in this house now, you know? So I always think, you know, whatever's happened, everything that's happened has shaped me into who I am now. And that's how I think about it.
Do you agree, ladies, though? Do you think that we always should have one foot in the past and one foot in the future? Because reflecting on our past has made us who we are today. Do you think that it's healthy for us sometimes to go back to those dark times to remind us who we are today? Let's go to you first, Kerry. What do you think about that?
I think sometimes it's good mentally to reflect, not to go and put yourself back in that situation, but to reflect how far you've come from a particular time in your life. You know, as we grow up as kids, you know, our parents, our support, whether it's parents, brothers, sisters, extended family, we built our foundation in how we're going to mature, go to teenage, go to adulthood, and then life experience teaches us a lot more as well, doesn't it? I think it's good to reflect, that you can think to yourself, or stop and think today, where was I 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Where am I now? And you know, I think it's about looking at your inner self like that, just to see how strong. A lot of people don't see how strong they actually are, but if they do look at what they've overcome, they'd see 100%.
Yes.
You'd see how strong you are. So many people don't feel strong, that they've been broken down by what's gone on in their life. Actually,
you see, I'm like that. I don't see what I've overcome, you know, what I've overcome in life. And people are saying, oh, you know, if that will happen to me, I won't be able to deal with that. You know, how do you deal with it? It's like, well, you know, I just do. I don't know how I deal with it. I just do. I just keep on living. Mainly, Alicia keeps me going. My daughter keeps me going. You know, she keeps me going in life and all of that. So, you know, and as I'm her only parent left, because her dad passed away 11 years ago, you know, I can't think, you know, dark thoughts about my past and let it affect me now, because I have my daughter to bring up, you know. I mean, I know she's turning 18 soon, but, you know, I'm still her mum no matter what. So, you know, I'm her only living parent. So I have to make sure that I'm healthy as I can be, physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It's that famous song, ladies, isn't it, by Whitney Houston, I Didn't Know My Own Strength. And I think it goes back to that. Do you agree, Sue? Are you in agreement that we should always reflect on our past?
Yes, but not too much.
Yeah.
I think look, and if anything, reflect on the good points and think of, well, gosh, I overcame that and look where I am now. Yeah. You know, as Sam said with her daughter, and see, and you look at your children, and you look at your grandchildren, you look whatever, and you think, well, gosh, you look at your career, you look what you've got. Well, I've achieved that. Yeah. You know, I might have had, like you, might have had a lot of hills to climb, but you've achieved a lot. Yeah, and you've got to think about that.
Exactly. Have you also, what do you think about anger? Do you think we change as we grow older and we get that little bit wider? Do you think we can put more of a lid on it? Do we think that we need to be looking inwards when it comes to dealing with anger and feeling angry about other people? Is it us with the problem or they are the problem? And do you think it's good to always have one foot in the past and one in the future to reflect on how far we have come? Have your say. But we finish on a final subject of, guess what, ladies? He's back in the news all over again. He never seems to be far away from the news. I will share this as we say this story, because I think it's really crucial that we see this actually. It opened my eyes as we shared this story this week. So is it going to share? It's not going to, is it? Let me try one more time. If not, we'll just have to.
We'll wing it.
Oh, there we go. So I wish I hadn't followed the rules. I had taken the fine. Sarah says, adding she would have given anything to spend more time with her dying husband. She told BBC Radio 5 Live she followed the rules because she thought the government was doing the right thing. Like many of those bereaved by COVID, she is angry at the Sue Gray report into Westminster's parties during lockdown. Boris Johnson said he took full responsibility and was humbled. Sarah, who is from Surrey but asked us not to use her full name, said that she had been unable to go and see her husband, Tony, 59, when he was rushed into the hospital during the first lockdown back in 2020. The reason I shared this picture this evening, panellists, is I think this cries out to what a lot of people don't understand. Worked long hours and didn't party. What our NHS absolutely went through is incredible. But I do want to ask the question that we're all asking ourselves at the moment, really. Ladies, do you regret now knowing more about what Boris did by sticking to his rules? Sue?
I think it's the case of he's saying, do as I say, not as I do. and I think it's criminal. But saying that, look at it said in the paper today that Keir Starmer is now, they're looking further into him and his party thing. So, you know, was he drinking as well? I mean, I think it's wrong. I have 2 daughters, both worked on the front line, both all the way through COVID, one stepdaughter, one daughter. My daughter couldn't even, although she was within the hospital, and she could not go and sit with her dad, and her dad died alone. And that was an NH worker. And I think it's all the people that have done that, other people who've had funerals and they've only had a few people able to go. I think it's wrong. I do think it's wrong, but.
Are you annoyed, Kerry, now knowing what Boris did throughout both lockdowns? Are you annoyed that you stuck by the rules so strictly?
Yeah, more so for other people, obviously, that lost loved ones and weren't able to, you know, spend those last few moments with them. And I think the thing that got me was the fines that the politicians got, and compared to, like we were saying about the fines that people who held parties, the fines they got, thousands of pounds worth of fines. I just think that is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to fine politicians, fine them 10 times as much of what you've been fining the general public. Simple as that.
Do you agree, Sam?
Yeah, I think the fines should be should reflect how much they earn. So, you know, if they earn what such amount, then the percentage of that is the fine. If you get what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
It should be that. I think that's how it should be. I mean, I can't remember which countries, but I know there's a country that does that, and it works. And it actually works. You know, I mean, all these like people who these multimillionaires and all that are breaking the rules, and you know, they get fined, and the fines is just pocket change to them. So I think the fines should reflect what they earn. So, you know, they earn such amount, and this percentage is what you are fined. I mean, I follow the rule.
It does make you think, though, doesn't it? Like I've had COVID, and luckily I've come out the other side of it to live to tell the tale.
Same.
But it does make me then now think, because I was dead against, if I'm completely honest, I was dead against anti-vaxxers. I was why would you not want to take this injection? But actually, do you now think Boris had a bit more of an idea of what he was letting on about COVID, because of his actions and what he was doing? Do you think he was keeping stuff away from the public?
He knew what everyone was facing. A lot of people, there was a spike in deaths, not just UK, but all over the blooming world. He knew what it was and the effect it was having. It was absolute pure disrespect.
It was.
Having a glass of wine after work, simple as that. Well, because they thought they'd never get it. They just didn't. They didn't. It's not nice. It's not nice to even think about the fact that they just kind of carried on with stuff. But then again, Nicholas, a lot of people out here had done that before all this come to light. There was a lot of people that still got together that didn't think about. You know,
but they wasn't leading the country, though, Kerry, were they? They wasn't leading the country. They wasn't stood in front of an ITV camera, BBC.
No, I know what you're saying, but also what I'm saying is that there were still people that were disrespect. Whether or not it was a cabinet that done that, there were still people that disrespected what was being said as well.
And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you know that saying about don't throw stones in a glass house or whatever like that. When we look at the woman in charge of Scotland, she has crucified Boris Johnson for what she has done, but she's made it still mandatory in Scotland to have a face mask on, but she's gone into somewhere public and been seen without a face mask. I just think why are these people laying down their rules and feeling that they're invincible and everybody else has to do it and they don't have to do it? How is this leading by example?
That's what I was just about to say. They need to start leading by example, but that I don't think that will ever happen. They're all in their own world. They have their own set of rules, and we have to follow a different set of rules. And it just doesn't seem fair on the public. And to be fair, I don't have a good thing to say about Boris. I mean, we call it in this house, we call him the Scarecrow.
But to be fair as well, Boris Johnson is a human being. So do you feel we're being too hard on Boris?
No.
No.
He has, he's screwed a lot of things up with the COVID and that. He didn't shut the borders soon enough. He should have shut the borders sooner. He should have done lockdown sooner, and he should have listened to the advice of the scientists that say, they're telling him, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and this needs to be done. But he's not taking their advice and doing it. It has come out in the past that the scientists have said, this is what we should be doing, but Boris isn't putting it in place.
Well, so, the next time we vote, the next time we vote, ladies, I'm just reassuring you that I am voting Ant and Dec, because I think they will run the country a lot better than Boris. And I've just put on order for the next press conference, Kerry, a Hoover. So I'm just hoping that you'll nip down to London and just throw it across the camera. Ladies, it's been a pleasure. That's my first show back. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible show with quite in-depth conversation this evening. Thank you very much. Always keeping us on our toes. And behind that vacuum is Kerry Gillespie, the woman that's a little bit tired this evening, but she's still shown her face. That's Sue Craven. And the person that stepped in and handed us the reins is Sam J. Hipwell. Thank you very much this evening. Just a final note, we send a massive support and love to Vicky Pearson, as she has been diagnosed with COVID this evening. So we send a lot of love out to you, Vicky, and we hope you feel very better very soon and back on the show ASAP. Thank you so much. It's been so good to be back in my hot seat. Join us same time, same place next week, 9 o'clock on Tuesday. It's been a pleasure, never a chore. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.